It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago and 7 p.m. in the Big Apple, New York. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog Scipio. Normally, I'd be joined by Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, but she's home nursing a hangover from Saturday's wedding. Amelia, if you're listening to the show, Alka-Seltzer and lemon juice works wonders. Tonight, a very special show, a returning guest, and two newbies to break in. Tonight, the making of an independent movie with our friend Brian Ceponis. He's returning. How you doing, Brian? You're returning.
Doing great, Mad Dog. Thanks for having us
back. With you tonight.
Yeah, I did. I brought a couple friends with us.
Why don't you introduce Jesse Hutchins and Mark Cant to us? Tell us a little bit about these guys.
Yeah. First, my main man here, he's off to my. Whoa, he's just switching me around here. Jesse, him and I. A few years ago, started a film production company called Red Slate Films and been working together on a bunch of film projects ever since then. And we're now working with Mark Cantu, who I always like to use the tagline. He's a filmmaking force of nature because he's a writer, director, producer, cinematographer, editor, and everything he touches is just gold. So we're teaming up with a huge, wonderful, talented cast to bring Grind to life later this year. So that's where we are.
Beautiful. And let me formally introduce these individuals. Jesse Hutchins is a writer, producer, director. His notable works are Luminous Dreams and Straight and Narrow. And Mark Cantu is also a writer, director, and producer. Sometimes actor, they tell me, Mark.
Sometimes.
And his best known works are Wolf Hollow, Night Zero, and Average Joe. And my understanding is that, Brian, that you were in Wolf Hollow. Is that tell me a little bit about working with Mark.
Yeah, I was in Wolf Hollow. Actually, that was the second film that I worked with. You don't have one of his other great works down there. Massacre Academy is where I first worked with Mark. Wolf Hollow was a blast. I got to play a couple of werewolves in the film, and Mark put together a heck of a script and a cast for that, and it came off just a fun, entertaining werewolf ride that you can go out and check it out on Amazon Prime. It's out there to watch. It's just one hell of a ride. It's just a lot of fun.
Mark Cantu, let me start with you. Let's talk a little bit about that. I've been a movie file for a very long time. I love movies. I love independent films. I like big blockbuster pictures when they're done right.
Right.
They say that time is money. I've been on the set of a few large budget pictures. You spend a lot of time, sitting around waiting for things to happen, for shots to be set up, and sometimes you'll wait 5 or 6 hours for, maybe a 10 or 15-second shot. And so while you're wasting this time, you're also wasting money. How does your directorial process and your filmmaking process differ on the indie level from that of the big budgets?
Well, I think, and thanks for having us, by the way, Mad Dog.
You're quite welcome.
I think, yeah. So I think what Ceponis was getting at was the whole force of nature thing. I think he sneaks that in there because he thinks I'm full of hot air. So I think I'm just blowing air at him. So I think that's why he says it. But I think there's another reason for it as well.
Brian, is he full of shit?
He's absolutely not full of shit. That man, when he speaks the truth.
I was dancing around it. So, but no, to answer your question, Matt, I think what Ceponis is getting at is the fact that on our sets, we don't waste time. We don't waste money. It's one of those things where, especially on the indie level, every dollar counts. I mean, we don't have the luxury of having a massive studio behind us where I wish we could say, how do I feel today? Do I want to try the light over here? Do I want to try the light over there? I wish we had that type of time and that type of budget. But on our level right now, like I said, we have to be so particular with, where's the light coming from here? I got to know 3 months in advance if it's coming through this window, if it's coming through that. I got to know what costumes look like. So to me, once we get on set, it's literally a matter of, I've been obsessing about details for 3 months by that point. So I really am able to get on set and within half an hour go, okay, I want that here, 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 and here. And within an hour we're shooting. And you can ask Ceponis, like most of the time, whenever we're filming, we're done early, and we're out. Like if we've got a scheduled day till 5 o'clock, we're out at 3 o'clock, or we're out at 2:30. So I don't believe in wasting anybody's time. And if I did waste anybody's time, my wife would kill me, which is why I'm able to stay in independent film and do this constantly, is because I also have a happy marriage as well. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Jesse Hutchins,
Yeah.
you are up to bat. The last time Brian was here, he called you, and I quote, I wrote this down. He called you the visionary, unquote, quote unquote, the visionary.
Yeah.
What makes you a visionary in indie filmmaking, my friend?
I don't know. I just see things like in a bigger picture.
He
like,
said that.
My goal is to be working professionally out in Hollywood, you know, make like working for the studios and things like that. And so like I kind of my mindset, I kind of mimic what I see on screen. So like I always think out of the box, because when I first started, I was always limiting. Yeah, I would limit what I would write because I was like, well, I don't know if I could pull this off. And then I kind of just had an epiphany one day, and I was like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And as I was writing,
Right.
go on a larger scale, and I was like, we'll just figure it out when the time comes for it. So
right. So you have a particular vision when you approach a set? Do you have a particular I don't want to know if I want to use this term, but a particular set of criteria that you have to meet before, you know, that everything's, you know, good to go before you say action?
yeah, pretty much. So like when I'm in the pre-production process, like I put myself in the location, I figure out what shots I want, what I want my talent to do. And then more time than most, I get on set and it might change a little bit, you know, because when we find a location, it might not be exactly what I was thinking of when I was
Right.
writing. So then I get on set, I pull an audible, and then we go from there, and then I get everything that I need.
I have not seen Luminous Dreams nor Straight and Narrow. Give me the Reader's Digest version on each.
So Luminous Dreams, it's my love letter to theater. I'm a big advocate about seeing movies in theaters. I watch a lot of stuff at home on TV, like streaming and all that, but I feel that a movie needs to be experienced in the theater setting with a large audience so that everybody gets to go on this journey and this ride all at the same time. Because like back in the day, before all this stuff started rolling out, like you would go to the theater and whatever happens on screen, you know, everybody's like, they're just like going through this for the first time all together. And then as they're walking out of the theater, you hear people chattering about it. And so like
Yeah.
I kind of miss those days. So I have a buddy that owned a theater north of us, and it was a single screen theater. It has a lot of history. It was built in 1924, 26.
Mm-hmm.
But he owned it, and we had a film festival there. And I was like, and this is right around when COVID was in place, so things were shutting down. And I asked him, I was like, can I shoot a movie in here? Just kind of half joking. He's like, yeah, of course you can. We got 3 weeks down, so whatever you need to do, come on in. And then I went home that week and wrote a script in like a day, had the final draft the next day, and then we got the green light to go in and shoot it. And then as far as Straight and Narrow, I love music as well as movies, so I kind of want to marry the two together. And that movie is based on an alcoholic musician who kind of gets on the straight and narrow.
Only one?
Yeah.
Only one?
Yeah. And so he gets on the straight and narrow. Some stuff happens. He falls off, and it kind of like ruins the bigger picture of what he wanted to do.
Right. Interesting stuff. Brian, let me bring you up to the big screen here. You've been here before, and we've talked film, we've talked acting. We've talked a little bit, you and I, about fundraising for film. My understanding is that Grind met all of its goals, as I understand.
But it met its initial goal. We're in the process of trying to reach one of our first stretch goals of 45,000, and we're getting there. We're on our way. We've had a couple of recent pushes to get us over $42,000. So we're on our way. But, you know, we've got that stretch goal, and then we got, you know, a bigger stretch goal down the road. But, you know, it's like independent filmmaking. It's just the money. and the fundraising is always the part that's challenging to say the least. And
Oh, absolutely.
having the attention on like an Indiegogo campaign or something like Grind, when just getting people out there, say, hey, look, go take a look at it. Even if you give in $25 for a special thanks, I mean, that any little
Yeah.
bit is always helping, So it's just a process. So that's where we are.
When we spoke last, Brian, you did some work on bigger budget films.
Mhm.
As a bit actor or a background actor, but to get your face out there.
Sure.
The difference in the pace of an indie film as opposed to the pace of a bigger budget picture, slower pace, faster paced, is there this sense of urgency that takes place with you?
I think it kind of depends. I've been on bigger budgets where it's like, good Lord, they spend 3 hours setting up lighting for a 30-second shot. And then, like Mark was saying before on his sets, things move so fast. John, early, you get on a studio set and you're working 16 hours and you may have actually literally worked for an hour, but you're on set for 16 hours, that type of stuff. But there is a difference, because the thing about the independent scene is that since it's your money and you're raising it, you're very attuned into saying, I've got to be more efficient on how I'm doing things, because I don't have the kind of money that a studio has to spend on this to burn. So
yeah, sure. Of course.
That's kind of where we are with that.
Jesse, let's bring it back up here. You've been doing this for a little while. As I read a little bit about your bio, you've been doing this for a bit.
Yeah.
And it started before college when the bug bit you.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about this. When did you know in earnest that you could make a living doing this, or that you wanted to make a living doing this? I'm assuming that you're all making a living doing this. Most of the time, that's not the case. You have day jobs.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. This is what you do for a full. Is this your full-time gig?
No. I did do a freelance for a little while. I just wasn't making enough money, so I went back into the workforce. So that's my at the 9 to 5.
Right.
So
when did all this start for you?
I was probably early stages of middle school.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer because I was looking at dollar signs,
Mm-hmm.
and then I don't know what made me go, I don't know if I want to do that, because if I lose a case and somebody's going to come back out and kill me, so I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, right.
But I've always loved movies. I lived out in LA in the early 90s, so I was kind of around that environment. But when I moved to Pennsylvania, my dad would take us to the video store and rent us movies and things like that. The movie that got me really wanting to do it was Armageddon. When I saw Armageddon, I was like, how do they do this? And then my brain just kind of started going how do they do this? I want to know, how did they set this up? How did it make it look like on an asteroid, all this other stuff? So then I go, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to be able to tell these stories and people enjoy it. And
so is it fair, Jesse, to say that your introduction to the film business was based on wanting to figure out how special effects were done?
You could probably say that, yeah.
Okay. And then what did you learn about the art of special effects or visual effects? Is there a way to do it without spending a ton of money?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of DIY stuff. I mean, I've done a little bit of research, and I like to think myself as a problem solver. So if I can't figure it out, what can I use to make this happen? As close as I can get to the bigger picture. So, but I like telling stories more. So I think that's kind of shifted. I followed Spielberg.
I have to tell you, Jesse, for a guy that loves to tell stories, you're a man of very few words.
Yeah, I get all my words, my dialogue out on paper.
Yes, he does.
I know a lot of people. We've had, just so you guys know, you are the 46th set of film directors and producers combined, the three of you, comes up to our 46th set of directors, writers, producers. Okay, in the indie genre alone, just in the indie genre. Okay,
There's a lot out there,
and we have our next 4 booked for 50. And I may have you back for that episode too.
Nice.
But it's interesting, Mark. I want to bring you in here. That you are diametrically opposite, Jesse. You're out there with it. You're a guy who knows what you want. You're not shy about saying it, and you too have you got bit by the movie bug a long time ago. Let's talk about your journey into indie filmmaking. Where did it start, and where, when, and how? Give me all the particulars.
So I have a little bit of a similar background as Brian, where I actually started off as an actor. So initially I got bitten by the stage bug where I was doing plays.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I actually went to college, and I was a theater major, and like I said, doing stage plays and things. And then I came back to my hometown in San Antonio, did community theater for a while. And when I was in college, there was a bit of like I don't want to say like favoritism, but there was definitely kind of, they were playing favorites. Let's just call it what it was.
Oh no!
So
bullshit, you know that
right.
Is what it is. Absolutely.
So in the drama department, like you couldn't quite make a lot of progress. So I was like, you know what? I still want to stay busy, but I'm going to try and make my own way here. Absolutely. And at that time, I had done like little movies with my brother when I was a kid, doing backyard epic things. And so I went to college, and I was like, you know what? Let me try my hand at film. And I realized not only was I decent at telling a story, and I had kind of an A to B to C in my head about things,
sure,
but I was automatically thinking of time management, like when we're on set. And that's become one of my hallmarks, like as I've gotten older. But it's one of those things where I could see people literally wasting time. Like Ceponis is saying, like I would be on sets, and I would be with, my brother and his friends, and they would be shooting and going, well, what do we want to do? And how do we want to do this? And maybe try this, maybe try that. And I was like, are you fucking kidding? Like, you're wasting everybody's time. You're killing me here. And it was just so frustrating to watch that from an outsider's perspective. I was like, I think I can do this way better than you can. And I'm a very competitive person. So the moment that kicked in my brain, I was like, I'm gonna do this way better than you ever could. And so that's just kind of evolved over time.
You just said something, Mark, that resonates with me because I've heard it time and time again on this show. I can do it better. Yeah. I saw what I saw, and I can do it better. And that's a recurring theme with indie filmmakers. It's that they have a particular vision. There's a way of bringing a unique perspective. The fact that you have no budget.
Yeah.
The fact that you're working with a lot of, as Jesse said, DIY stuff, building your own props, hiring cheap talent like Brian Ceponis.
He's not that cheap when you figure in the emotional toll that it takes on you to be with him.
On him.
Thank you.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about that too, because and we talk about the cost of indie filmmaking. Because I definitely want to have the financial conversation, but we're going to allude that in a little bit later in the show. But let's talk about the price and the cost of indie filmmaking on the creative level, on the emotional level, on the toll it takes on your resources. So, Brian, I'll start off with you. Why don't you jump in on that one, brother?
Yeah. Some of that's incalculable because it's just as far as you put so much. I know, and I use marketing as an example for example, like with Wolf Hollow. There were 2 years in advance of Wolf Hollow that went into that film,
right?
That nobody ever sees. Nobody ever sees anything that goes on behind the scenes, and you're spending countless hours and blood, sweat, and tears to get the script done, to get everything in place. And as an indie filmmaker, you've got to be location manager, you got to be producer, you got to be 18 hats. And it's all this stuff that goes into it where you finally get to the point where it's like, okay, now I can actually go and shoot this. By that point, you're like, oh, okay, let's just get this thing shot, because I've put in years of work to get to this point where I am at, to actually get on set and produce this thing.
Right.
So there's just, it's almost an incalculable number that goes into the emotional, the intangibles that are beyond just, okay, here's what I actually have to pay for.
Yeah,
In terms of my actors, in terms of my costumes, in terms of makeup artists, whatever, locations, and so on. But just the toll it takes. Like, and the funny thing with where we are with Grind is when we came off Wolf Hollow, Mark was saying, I'm done with film. I need a break. I can't. I've had put so much time into Wolf Hollow. I need a break. And then a week later, or I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but not much. Hey, I got a script, Grind. And 2 weeks later, he's got a script. Let's go with Grind. I'm like, Jesus, Mark, didn't you say you wanted to take a break? So
right.
It's hard to say.
Jesse, I want you to do me a favor, Jesse. Hop in on here and piggyback off of what Brian was talking about.
Yeah, so like we just sat down because we're going to be gearing up for another project in the fall. So we just sat down and we're trying to break down like logistics and how we're going to be able to get the money that we need to cover for, like, we have props, like guns, and then like our locations, and how are we going to persuade the town that we want to shoot in to let us come in and shoot it. There's a scene where we got to shut down Main Street. So we're like, well, how much is it going to take for us to kind of make them say yes? Like if we make a donation to XYZ, are they going to say yes? So we're putting that in the budget. And then now we got to figure out like, how are we going to get that money? Because like we're nobodies, not a lot of people know who we are. We're independent.
Well, that's the whole purpose, isn't it, Jesse? And that you're unknown. Isn't it the idea to become known?
Right. So that is the goal. But like, it's hard for us to go, well, you don't know us. You don't know our work, because we haven't done a feature yet. But give us money because we need to do this. We want to do this project.
Well, and so, when you go into, okay, I'll take your example for example. You go into a town and you want to, that's a prime location for you. You want to utilize Main Street. Barring, making a bribe to city council or, piecing off the police department, can you get what you need in one day or a few hours that where it won't, tie up traffic or inconvenience, citizens for any length of time? Is that feasible given your creative spark, your creative budget, since you basically have none?
Yeah,
you're relying off of the public really to fund your films, which and hey, salute to the public, for reaching into their pocket and helping finance Grind, which we are going to talk the entire second half of our show. We're going to talk about Grind. But this is kind of laying the groundwork for tonight's show, which is called The Making of an Independent Movie. And I am joined by Jesse Hutchins, Mark Cant, and our returning friend, Brian Ceponis. So when last we left off, Jess, so can you do that effectively for what you need to do, given the short window of opportunity that you have to do it?
I know I can.
What do you rely on for that? There's got to be some kind of like little monster inside you that comes up with this shit.
I'm just like, I think outside the box and how are we going to do this? But like the team that I'm going to be bringing in, I've worked with them numerous times. I know what I can get out of them. So that's going to play a big factor. Bringing those guys, they know what I'm looking for. I know what they can do, and it's going to make things run a lot smoother. We just did a Civil War movie over the summer, and we had to make it work. That was $1,000 project, and we made it look like it was six figures or a multi-million-dollar film. So
interesting
resources, and it's who kind of.
Mark Cant. I'm going to bring you back up here, kid. Same question to you. You are on bat. I mean, no, you're not on deck. You're up to bat.
I'm up to bat. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you know, and where, you know, Brian and Jesse kind of paint this picture of the independent film being, you know, lesser money than a studio picture, certainly having to rely on creative input and improvisational techniques for either special effects or using actors that aren't really, you know, seasoned actors. Present company excluded, Brian, because you're a hell of an actor and you're a good guy.
Thank you.
But you can't use, you know, Brian Ceponis for all your movies. They got to give the guy a break sometime.
Well,
God
not with that
knows
attitude. I can't. I can try.
You don't
Glenn
have to
Martin
give me a
had
break.
him hide him in a fucking big suit costume for how long?
Oh, long enough.
Too long. Too
Right?
long. Yeah.
That's what you get for being 6'7" or whatever the hell you are.
Exactly.
You know. But here's the thing, though. So you're the guy that has to put this, you know, the pieces of the puzzle together. You got to figure out what you need, how much money you need, what's it going to cost you for this person, and that set, and this location, and you've got all of these things swirling around in your head. And so you've got to, you're look, it all comes down to you. You're the director, you're the producer, you're the writer, you know, and you double as an actor if need be, because you got no budget. So given all of these pieces of the puzzle, how do you put your puzzle together?
In private, so I can fail without anybody looking over my shoulder. That's kind of the the honest answer.
That's a beautiful answer. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, like, kind of jumping off of what Jesse has said earlier too, I mean, you do have to have a very strong plan in place before you get on set. And so that only comes from being in the trenches. If it's by yourself, it's by yourself. And I look through the script and I memorize things, and I've gotten to the point in my system, because you do have to have a system for yourself. I've gotten to the point where I know as I'm writing something kind of where I'm going to shoot certain things and who I'm going to pull in for certain things. So I've kind of got a plan in place by the time I'm writing. By the time I'm scouting, I have a really good idea of what I'm wanting. So it's the analogy that I always use for it is it's like jazz, where it's like you have to have a really good solid foundation for everything. So by the time you get to set, you can improvise. You know exactly what the in and the out are. So you've got room. If somebody goes, hey, can I try this? Yeah. Then you go, yeah, absolutely. We've got time for that. We've got an extra hour and a half in the schedule to kill. You know, we can fit it in here somewhere. And so that allows for creativity.
You have the musical analogy in there. We've had a number of people on the show. Brian knows. We've had actors, writers, musicians, producers, directors, all kinds of people. One of our favorite guests here, a dear friend of mine, a personal friend as well as being on the show, Mark. His name is Mark Sotkin, and Mark is the writer, producer, director of The Golden Girls. Is most famous known for The Golden Girls. And I asked him about that, the art of writing comedy for television, and he says there's a tempo. There's a cadence. There's a beat to it. And
there's a musicality to it all. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought about that, and it's a lot like putting a song together. You've got your the chorus, you've got the verses, and you've got to make it all make sense.
Right.
How do you do that then in the context of film where no one's ever seen it before and this is their first time? Number one. And number two, how do you make them walk out of that theater or screening room going, oh, that was different? And different isn't always bad, by the way.
Yeah. And I think to answer your question, I mean, honestly, it's one of those things, and Ceponis can speak to this as well, is you have to have you have to go into it with a sensitivity. And it's like we're saying, you were using the music analogy, where it's, you understand that there's a structure to everything, but then you also have to let it live on its own, because whether it's comedy, whether it's filmmaking, it's got to also be alive. It can't just be actors accommodating the dialogue, hitting their marks, and then just going home. It's got to have some sort of freshness to it. It's got to be alive in some way. So you have to have that room on set. On the back end of it, when you're in post, when you're putting it all together and you say, I think I've got all the shots, I think I've got all the dialogue, and we recorded everything, I lit it right.
Yeah.
At that point, you have to be so honest with yourself, with an audience, because an audience will see right through bullshit. They'll just call you on it. So it's one of those things where you have to have a really good support team. And Ceponis is part of mine. Jesse's part of mine, where I'll pass something to them. And again, it's that ability, like I said before, to fail in private, where it's nobody gets to see, the public's not watching it yet, but you have to be able to turn it over to each other in private and go, what do you think? And Ceponis will, like I said, we'll be in edits sometimes, and Ceponis is like, the fuck was that? What is that?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Why did you cut that thing? That was perfect. Like, we did this scene and you left this moment out that I thought was great. And you go back and you kind of push and you pull, and you have to have that sensitivity and that honesty with each other before an audience even sees it. So by the time it gets to an audience, you've worked through all the BS and you've kind of said, I think this is the most honest version of it. And hopefully that speaks to somebody's truth at that point. So
I appreciate that. Hold that thought. We are going to break for a commercial ID. You are listening to WWGF Radio, 88.7 FMI, the home of What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast, and On the Record. I'm your host, Mad Dog DeCipio. Tonight, the making of an independent movie. Brian, I'm going to bring you up here onto the big camera because, by God, you deserve the big camera tonight.
I don't know. He gets enough of it.
Let's talk a little bit about this film Grind. You were here the last time, really high on this film. I won't tell them that privately you said, oh God, this movie sucks, it's going to be horrible. No,
I know he did.
Would never.
So let's talk about Grind. We're going to spend about the next 25 minutes or so talking about Grind. So you're at your stretch goal in the crowdfunding stage. Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit, just very, very peripherally. Now, if someone wants to donate further to the to put some money in the coffers here, where do they go? How do they do it? What is there a minimum amount involved here?
Right now, the campaign is still open for another, 30 some hours, Mark?
It'll be open for 36 hours. And then after that, because we've met our goals, it stays open. So it's an in-demand campaign. So anybody can actually still donate after the time's up.
Correct.
So anytime they want. Okay, great.
Anytime they want. Just head out to Indiegogo and search Grind. You see right there.
Okay. Yeah. And by the way, you have to search Grind movie. If you just Google or Yahoo the term grind, you're going to come up with a 1986. You're going to come up with a 1986 movie that has nothing to do with cosmic horror.
Nothing to do with cosmic horror.
Or the MTV dance rap show. You don't know. Like the 1990s were all about
cheap porn starring Ginger Lynn.
Or some kind of coffee maker. You're grinding.
Right,
coffee.
Exactly. Could be coffee. Yeah. Could be a number of things.
You have to put Grind
movie. Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so walk me through this. When did you become involved in the project in earnest, where you knew I'm going head in?
Pretty much from day one when Mark the idea of Grind right after Wolf Hollow. It was a no-brainer. As Mark's like, hey, I got another idea. I don't care what it is, I'm in.
So he could say, anything, and you're in because you trust him that much.
It's these two gentlemen here with me. Anything that they say that they're doing, I know is going to be quality, and I'm in. I don't even have to. I'm just in. Yes, 100%.
Beautiful. Well, I'll tell you what. So far you've made some really good career choices. I hope they don't fuck it up for you.
No pressure. No pressure on us.
Pressure.
Right,
Jesse.
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm gonna get back to work here. I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Right. So Jesse, let me bring you up here, kid. your involvement in Grind, when did it start? Talk to me about your involvement in it, your investment, either through talent or through financial means. Walk me through your journey into this new film, Grind.
It would probably start with Massacre Academy. When I saw that, I knew Mark was a talented guy, and then when he announced We'll Follow, I wanted to act in it, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna audition for a role. So I got to play a little small bit in there, and I read the script, and it was amazing. It was a page turner, and I couldn't put it down until I got to the end and saw how it ended. And that was the same thing with Grind. When he kind of like posted the Grind banner or whatever on Facebook, I knew from the get-go, like, somehow I got to be a part of this project, because
Every script has what they call a hook.
Yeah.
How did the script and the treatment vary, and what was the hook for you?
The hook for me would probably be people getting turned in like these kind of zombie type things, and then it's just blood and gore and just witty dialogue.
Okay. So it was the dialogue and again some semblance of special effects, because I get the sense that you're a visual guy.
Yeah.
Because you're very quiet. But I have this feeling that you take everything in like viscerally, and you remember scenes.
Yeah.
I have that. I just have that sense about you. That
that's correct.
You don't say much, but you watch everything.
I'm a sponge. I soak everything in.
I kind of figured you had to be, because you're not saying much.
That's very insightful, though, man.
That's actually a good thing, though. But Mark, let's talk about that. This is your project, essentially, right?
Yeah. I'm the one causing all the trouble. Yes, that is correct.
So Grind came out of this was yours, and Grind came out of your, I guess your psyche, your mind, something had to trigger this story, this idea. Yeah. So, with that kind of, I got to find out what the hell this is.
I was waiting to see if you picked that up. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So what? I mean, aside from the fact you have an ex-porn star, and have used ex-porn stars in your
Ceponis, you did porn? I didn't realize that. Wow.
That was supposed to be taken off the internet.
You know what it was? It's the Wes Brantley thing. That's the mustache I should have yet to give away. Yeah. All right.
He was in that.
We won't talk about that.
Biafra.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Right.
Yes.
So to answer, so where did it come from? Honestly, the no bullshit answer is that it came from a complete nervous breakdown. So what actually happened is after we finished Wolf Hollow, we had our premiere. It was an amazing event, but I was absolutely exhausted. I was wiped out emotionally, mentally, like spiritually, like just spent. And we immediately, I thought I had about a good 4 months time before we started getting distribution offers. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take a bit of a break and I'm going to kind of move forward from there. And almost immediately, about 2 weeks after our premiere, we got an offer for distribution. And I was like, holy shit. I was completely caught off guard. So I had to scramble to start getting all of our deliverables, sent over. And that process alone can be daunting even if you've got 5 months. It can be a lot.
Oh, yeah,
and so I had to turn it around within about a month. And so that, by the time I got to that point, it was end of May or something like that. I just broke. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I took a month off from work.
Yeah.
And I was in my own little world. And it was kind of almost a situation where it was I was doing a lot of painting. I was doing photography just to kind of keep my artistic impulses alive.
Sure.
And I sat down on my computer and I was and I had no inkling of anything coming out. And I was I just feel like creating a poster. I don't know why, but I just feel like creating a poster. And so I just started to throw things down in Photoshop. And I was like, well, what is this movie that I'm looking at? And then I just started to kind of go, well, maybe it's this. It was no, well, maybe it's this. Well, maybe it's that. And all those little ideas that I started to kind of come up with and wound up becoming like the Grindhouse movies that we see in Grind. So
Absolutely.
it's an old Grindhouse movie film festival. So all those little ideas I was getting are actually basically what I was working on that first day. And then I came up with a poster.
As you said that, your light turned red.
Yeah.
and that is, and I think the timing of that was serendipitous.
I'm just saying, things happen for a reason.
Absolutely, because that was clearly what Grind really is. It's all about lighting, visual. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Grindhouse movies. I love Tarantino stuff. He's the king of the grind. We all know that. So how much were you inspired by Quentin's work?
If we're being completely honest, I don't like Tarantino all that much. Like, I am not a fan of his. I one of my favorite movies of all time is True Romance, and it's the fact that he didn't direct that movie. Like, the dialogue's great. I thought the script was the original ending for that is not great. And I think that was probably an inspired choice to kind of change the ending.
True Romance with Christian Slater and Erica Eleniak?
Patricia Arquette.
Patricia Arquette.
Yeah, but that cast is amazing. That movie is amazing. Mm-hmm. And I think early Tarantino is fantastic. So I think Reservoir Dogs is amazing. That is a great film. Pulp Fiction is good. I think it just kind of got a little too overexposed over the years. Sure. Mm-hmm. But then anything after that, I'm just not in love with. I just feel like it's kind of too self-serving, and it just goes on for too long.
You know, one of the other kings of grind, probably even before Tarantino, a guy, I don't know, you might be too young to remember this name or even know this name, but a gentleman named Vincent Gallo. If you guys know who Vince Gallo is. Buffalo 66, you know the film?
I know the film. I don't think I've actually seen it, but I know who you're talking about. Kind of longer hair, beard. Yeah, I know who he is.
Very much. That describes him perfectly.
Yeah.
He's kind of got that same kind of, his visions remind me a lot of you and Jesse. He's got that kind of outside the Hollywood, outside the box kind of, even though he's a product of Hollywood.
Right. But you're going to do your own thing. Right.
His films are very anti-Hollywood, very anti-establishment, which is why I love Vince Gallo. I think he's great. He's a little quirky, but
yeah.
But then again, if you're in the film business, you're a little quirky. Anyway.
I think we all got to be a little crazy. Yeah,
exactly. I think a lot of that has to do, and I'm being totally shoot here. I think a lot of that has to do with we have a need to express our creative inners, our inner tier. Our creative input has to come out in some form or fashion. And however or whatever that is okay with us, even if it bothers other people. I'll give you a perfect example of who I'm talking about. Andy Kaufman was a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Because Andy Kaufman was not a comedian. He was a performance artist. And he made people uncomfortable, but he never stopped doing what he knew was creative to him. So
and he stayed true to himself. Right.
So exactly. So here's my question to all of you guys. And we're gonna go round the robin on this one.
Round the robin.
Okay. I'm going to start with Brian because he opened his mouth. When the creativity stops, let's forget about the finance right now, because I'm sure all you guys have like other gigs, other jobs, and there's no doubt in my mind that you would have to just to be able to feed your family, because this kind of indie filmmaking isn't going to make anyone rich, not for a little while anyway, not till some benefactor picks you up. Or you get a hell of a distribution deal. We're going to talk about that in a minute, too.
Right.
But, Brian, let's talk about this. Jump in on here. Let's talk about the idea of what happens when the creative spark stops sparking. What do you do, kid?
If if I were a drinker, I'd say drink heavily, but I'm not. So
Right, exactly.
That's a good question, Mad Dog, because it's
What
one
I
of
get paid for.
those, apparently. I mean, if you commit your life as an artist and you commit yourself to say, you know what, this is what I want to do, and I don't have a safety net, I don't have a fallback plan, because it's always kind of like if I have a fallback plan, you end up falling back on the plan. So
Yeah.
if I say this is what I do and I will do this till the day I die,
Mm-hmm.
if that creativity stops or that spark of wanting to go out and create something or make a film, I honestly don't know what I'd do. I mean, that's a question that I hope I don't have to freaking answer.
Well, let's talk about it from a practical standpoint. You do have to make a living. You do
Sure.
have to pay your
Yes.
bills. I know a guy, and I'll tell you who he has been on the show many times. His name's Jim Fife. You may have seen him with Michael J.
Oh, yeah.
Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Fife's a very dear friend of mine. We went to high school together. He's been in the Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. He played Willie Loomis on the Dark Shadows and a bunch of stuff on HBO. He went to Hollywood and serendipitously left, or I should say unceremoniously left, due to the fact that Hollywood for him wasn't all it was cracked up to be. And to Mark, Cantu's point earlier, they play favorites.
Yep.
They still do in Hollywood. They play favorites. Don't let anybody tell you they don't.
Yep.
Because it's all, who you know or who you blow that gets you the gig. It's the truth. I mean, I'm going to look, there's no language parameters here, and I'm not going to lie to my audience.
No, yeah.
It's just, it is what it is.
You forgot one thing though, who you're related to.
Say again, Brian.
So you forgot one thing. It's who you're related to besides who you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, nepotism is running rampant in Hollywood. Are you shitting me?
Without question.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But the idea that you have to pay your bills. I mean, can you continue to do this? And this, I want all you guys to answer this. Can you continue to do this at the risk of not putting money in your pocket? And how long do you think, crowd, funding is going to be a thing? At some point, the numbers on Grind are beautiful, but at some point the numbers are going to start to dwindle and people are going to give less and less and less the more time that goes by. And that's just a fact of crowdfunding.
Right.
It's also just a fact of the movie business. That's just the way it is. So when do you make that decision where you say to the wife, I'm going to have to go back to the bank and or the office or wherever you are, Yeah.
Well, fortunately, I haven't hit that yet.
Good for you. I'm glad because you're a hell of an actor.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Honestly, man, dog, if that day comes, it's kind of one of those things like Jesse was talking about before. It's I don't know if you necessarily plan for that or look, because you're so focused on I want to do this in terms of filmmaking and be an actor. It's like if I ever come to that point, I just have to figure it out. You just got to figure it out. I don't want to plan for that because, like I said, if you plan for something to fall back on, what are you going to do? You're going to, okay, well, this isn't working today. I'm going to go fall back on it. Instead, there's going to be tough times. There's going to be lean times. And the funny thing is, like you had mentioned about LA, is like I was in LA for 11 years and kind of the same thing is like, okay, well, we had a kid out there and I wanted to bring my kid back east. I didn't want to raise him in LA, but it was funny when we got back to Pittsburgh, I kind of got busier back here. And then that, I met Jesse and him and I had commonalities in terms of what we wanted to do. And that's why we started Red Slate.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to sit there and wait for somebody like as an actor to call me to say, hey, you got a part. We're going to go out and make our own stuff from Jesse's perspective as a director, cinematographer, for me as an actor. And I'm going to put it out there and enough stuff, you throw enough stuff against the wall and something's going to stick type of thing. So,
and that's exactly what Jim Fife said when he came back here. He said, there's more work here on the East Coast.
There's more work back here. And I meet Mark, I meet all these other people. And next thing you know, boom, I've got a bunch of stuff going on.
Oh, sure.
So,
you've got film, television, stage. You got a lot of creative outlets here.
Exactly.
Jesse, what happens when the phone stops ringing for you, kid?
It's not. I'm just gonna do it myself and make things. I was I'm a firm believer I was put on this earth to tell stories, and I'm not going to stop doing it. Whether I get the big job or not, I'm still going to create films and art.
And how are you currently feeding your family?
Day job.
Okay, so you got a gig.
Yep.
Good. Okay, keep that day job. Want to tell everybody out there watching this, if you're an actor, singer, dancer, filmmaker, pursue your dream. Absolutely pursue your dream, but don't give up your day work. That's your income. Don't blow your cash. Keep it. When the phone rings with the big buck offer, then it's okay to quit your job. But if you've got an apartment to pay for and you've got bills or a student loan or whatever the case may be, keep your job. You're not going to be, I promise you, you're not going to be the big next thing, okay? It's not going to happen. It's only going to happen for Jesse Hutchins, Mark Cantu, and John Ceponis.
Exactly.
So,
Did you have to put Ceponis in there? You didn't have to, right?
Hey, from Mad Dog's mouth to
Jesse,
God's ears. That's what I'm saying. So,
what's next up for you, Jesse Hutchins?
We are going to be gearing up to do A Quiet Town. It's a crime thriller about two brothers. One lives under the thumb of the other, and he wants out of the business, and Big Brother doesn't want him to. So it's a nice little engaging story with some nice twists and turns that nobody's going to expect.
Interesting. We have someone in our chat room from Japan. She's one of our listeners from listening in Japan right now. And she says, what was just said reminded me of what Mark Devlin, you probably don't know who he is, I know who he is, said about Stanley Kubrick's eye for detail. He said it had to do with Kubrick's autism. Autism is brain damage, they say. I don't believe that. I believe autism is an absolute portal to creativity.
Yeah.
No one will ever convince me that autism is a disability. It is a super ability, in my humble opinion. Anybody want to comment on that?
I would agree. My nephew's autistic, so I agree with that.
And Mark, I'm going to bring you up last here, young man, and then we'll finish out the show with you.
Sure.
What happens when the creative juices run dry and the phone stops ringing and you don't get that distribution deal from Amazon Prime?
Honestly, it's not the end of the world, and it took me such a long time to kind of reframe that for myself, so that way I didn't hurt myself or kill myself. If things didn't go the right way, it's okay. You pick up and you keep on moving on every single day. So for me, it's one of those things where I've had this conversation with my wife, with friends, with family that, hey, if I had to walk away tomorrow, I'd walk away and I'd be okay with it. I'd still have photography. I'd still have painting. Those are not going to be outlets that are going to be taken away from me. I can still do them when I'm 90. And I just prefer the movement and sound in movies. Like that's what I get juiced by. But to me, I've told my wife, like I said, I would still be shooting photographs. I would still be, painting in the back office for, 5 hours at a time. So to me, the creativity is never going to go away, ever. And so I said, I think it'll go away when I die. That's when it's going to end. So
fabulous. That's a great answer. I'll tell you what I'd like to do is extend an invite to you guys when the film premieres and you've all had a chance to see it together. I want to bring it back after the film is, made, completed, been shown to an audience. Bring it back and let's do the before and after analysis here. How about that?
I'll do you one better. I will actually say let's come back when we're in the post-production process, when Ceponis and I are pissed at each other and we aren't talking, and we're just like, I can't deal with him and his stupid opinions. I
love airing a good pissing comment.
I would just cover Mark's face on the screen, like, man, I'm just talking to you and Jesse, so I just
there you go.
Let me tell everybody what we got coming up here. Tomorrow night, it's open forum, news and politics of the day. On Wednesday, a special professional wrestling show paying tribute to my very first co-host on radio, Jeff the Ref Robinson. He's been gone now for a few years, and we're gonna say a happy birthday to Jeff in our own little way. And still coming back on the show, making his return appearance, Mafia Hitman, worked for the Gotti family, worked for the Gambino family. His name is Lou Ferranti. He was a top enforcer for John Gotti under the Gambino regime in New York. We will also have television and film actor Ronnie Marmo, star of stage, TV, and film. He's a triple threat, this guy. He's best known for his role as Lenny Bruce in the one-man show, I'm Not a Comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. He will be back with us again. We will have a returning guest. Mark Sotkin will join us, as well as country music Hall of Famer Lacey J. Dalton, among others. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, and it's only what I can remember because Amelia's not here. Amelia, remember what I said. Lemon juice and Alka-Seltzer works wonders, kid. And get well soon. I will see you tomorrow, maybe, if your hangover is gone. Oh, Lordy. Well, listen, gentlemen, Brian, thank you for bringing these two great guests. Mark Cantu, producer, director, Jesse Hutchins, producer, director, and writer, and actor and writer, my friend Brian Ceponis. You are welcome back anytime you guys want to come here to promote anything. The door is wide open. On behalf of Brian, Jesse, and Mark, I am Mad Dog DeCipio. We'll see you next time on What's the Buzz, America's Best Podcast. Take care, folks. Good night.